G'day guys, it's Galvin from the Cartoon Company down under in New Zealand. I've been wiring up a Link Storm onto a 1UZ for a mate. He's invited me to participate in a 24-hour Lemons race in his HQ powered, in his 1UZ powered bright yellow Lemon HQ race car, X race car. Still a race car, it's now a Lemons race car. Somehow he's weaseled his way to have me make the loom. As part of this job, it was decided we're going to stick with the standard 1UZ stepper motor, the IAC valve, the factory unit. It looks like this, but it's normally got a body on it. So as such, we want it to run the idle properly. And these work very well when they're in good condition. They're a great unit. One disadvantage is they take up a lot of outputs on the Link. So it uses up auxiliary 4, 5, 6 and 7. They must be wired to those outputs. I've got my own little set of diagrams for it. And I will put a link to this diagram in my in the description onto my Google Drive where I've got that information. So if you are wiring it, there's some base numbers to give you a good head start and the pinouts. So have a look at that. So a really good start is to look in PC Link and go into the power side of it, the power and grounds, input power and grounds, and look at the information in there. There's some good diagrams. And it pays to wire it fairly close to that. If you don't wire it correctly, you're likely to get backfeeds, which are just a pain in the backside. This way I've done it here relates to the storm upwards. The Atom and Monsoon won't run the stepper motor successfully. So we generally change to a 2-wire stepper. Well, it's actually a solenoid, so I should use a proper word, shouldn't I? We change to a 2-wire solenoid instead of the 6-wire stepper. On it, the 2 center pins are the power inputs, and the other 4 go to auxiliary 5 to 8 on the Link. For the power supply, let's have a look at mine. This is my supply to the ECU, and I've fused my ECU and my wideband and my IAC separately. That's each of those. This is my input from my ignition. Comes up through here, goes to our diode here, in there, out there, and back to, well, I've linked it into the bottom of my relay, but it goes to the ECU. Okay, so it's in that ECU circuit. The same wire, you'll see there's, or you might not, but there's 2 wires here. The other one comes out to a digital input on the ECU. So at the moment I've got the main 12 volt powered up and digital 2 on my one, which should be, it's down the bottom here. Let's just double check on my diagrams. Digital 1, digital 2, yes. So digital 2 is my ignition switch input, and there is voltage to my ECU. Presently all going through this diode. The relay is not energized. We can energize the relay here. You can hear that relay clicking, so at present that relay is not energized. Let's plug in this ECU. Our blue light comes on. Let's get into PC Link and have a look at what we've got happening in here. So I was talking about stepper, factory stepper, or idle speed control, or idle air control valve, whatever you want to call it, that one. Taking 6 wires, the middle 2 are going to go to a power supply supplied by the ECU. So those are going to go over to the I said that wrong. So the center 2 wires are going to go to a power supply that is ECU controlled. It'll be a relay that the ECU holds on after the engine is turned off. So that's the center 2 pins, and then the 4 around the outside. I've got my own little diagram. So I worked out a long time ago how to wire up these back with the G3 link. And I made up a set of base settings that were pretty close and a really good starting point. At this point, I'm just going to pop the wires into the plug, record the colors that I've used, because the important stuff is going to happen over at the ECU. So it's time for me to fit up the stepper motor pins into the ECU. So with the link, you can't use the factory stepper directly to a Atom or a Monsoon because there's not sufficient outputs. They won't run it. So we start at the Storm as the minimum requirement to run the stepper with the link range. The Fury, the Extreme, the Thunder, and the Kurifune all are fine. So they're all good. And the Supra plugin, if you guys have been looking at options for your Saurus, all will run the stepper fine. So I've already got the wires, of course, out on the engine harness. So they're all wired up. Center 2 pins are going to a power supply, which we'll discuss soon, and then the 4 wires around the outside for the stepper windings. So these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're not worried about 2 and 4 because they're the voltage. And I've got my setup here. I'll put a link in the description to my Google Drive to extract that information if you're working on these. And I've already written down where each wire goes. And these have to go in the correct order. Somewhere I've even got the designations IAC 1, 2, 3, 4 on here, on one of them. So we're going into auxiliary 5, 6, 7 and 8. They must be in those auxiliaries. You don't have a choice on that. So I'm going to put my purple green into 5, white, blue. So the colors aren't that important. It's the pin position linking with the other positions. And I actually recently sent some information up to the man who's going to be getting this loom, to Zane, for another vehicle that he had. It wasn't idling properly, and it had a couple of the pins in the stepper incorrectly set up. He swapped them around and voila, he has an idle speed. So it's important that these are correct. So I pop my pins into there. Auxiliary 5 is to pin 1. Auxiliary 6 is into pin 3. Auxiliary 8 to 4. And auxiliary 7 to pin 6, position 6. So they're all done. This is the power supply. We'll be looking at that soon when I get into the relays and fuse box. So talking about that, the wiring information in here, we go up to the help function here. Wiring information, and down the side here in the drop down menus is power supplies and ECU hold power wiring. And it gives you several different ways. So I've wired it pretty close to this way here. Ignition switch through a fuse, which is this fuse here, my diode, which is up here, which supplies voltage to that ECU. And it's also, you can see here, provides the positive to the ECU relay and the ignition coil relay. On my one, I've got the idle speed control unit powered by the main relay, and coils and injectors are off the ignition coil relay. Everything is grounded. This is a brand new loom. I haven't tested it, so this is really what we're doing right now, is checking this out. Going back to the software, I did set up a bit of a profile, and I have wired, as per my diagrams, the auxiliary outputs 5, 6, 7 and 8 to that idle stepper. They have to be wired correctly, so you've got to put them in the right places. I'm going to pop down here now to idle speed. No, I'm not. We'll just have, actually, yes I am. I can't make up my mind. Idle speed, closed loop. I'm just going to put it on open loop stepper for a moment. Target RPM, that's close enough for what we're doing. And base positions. So these, and there's a bit of information out here. It is the number, and it says here, when using idle speed stepper motor, the numbers in this table represent the number of steps from the stepper motor's fully open position. Okay. Therefore, increasing the number will result in a decreasing idle speed. Okay, so that's really important. There's also some clamp numbers back in the configuration. Just have a look here. Maximum clamp of 95. Just going to look at my numbers here that we're going to plug in. They're at 97. So I'm going to just increase that. For the moment. And I'm going to plug in my numbers. So it's going to take me a few moments just to do that. You'll see as the numbers, as I'm going up, the numbers are getting bigger. And these were for a substantially lower idle target, but that will be good enough for what we're trying to do today. And I'm going to save that to my file, and I'm going to save that to the ECU as well. Probably help if I actually connect it to the ECU. So our link has been unlocked. We're going to open a file, and I'm just going to find my file. Pretty sure it's in here. No, it isn't. It's in this one. HQ, base file, open. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yes, there's errors in it because this profile was in another car, and there are some differences with this one. Let's focus on the ECU hold. We're not going to worry about those codes right at the moment. So I'm going to go ECU settings. So it's very, very important in the digital inputs to have an ignition switch input. I've got the ignition switch. I'm not putting a label because it is going to be the ignition switch. And I've got it on a high because it's a 12 volt input. We can look in the tuning menu here runtime values, digital. Digital input 2, ignition switch is active, so the ignition switch is on. I'm a little bit lost. Right, we're going to go back over here. We're going to look, then we need an auxiliary output to be set to ECU hold. We're scrolling down. Auxiliary outputs fuel, sequential, auxiliary outputs ECU hold power. So ignition 4 is on ECU hold power. I'm going to just go over to the help file, which isn't going to help me. I'm going to get the help file going. Wiring information, power and ground wiring. ECU hold power. We're going to scroll down. Let's spread that out a bit. And you can see here that we've got the diode, comes through, powers up the ECU, and it also goes to the solenoids. This one here says injectors. However, I've got the injectors on the coil relay, but I have got the idle speed control unit on this main relay. So I've got my ECU hold, that's keeping that relay alive. And we go in here, there's some more setup we need to do, which is here under the auxiliary outputs. ECU hold power. Sees here, and we probably should do it on the configuration screen actually. We'll go to the same spot. On the configuration screen, it's got this little help menu here as well, which is really, really helpful. So it tells you about what's going on. So it's a bit like the wiring information, but there's just a little bit of information there about it. So that's quite handy to have. So I'm happy that that is correct. I'm going to get my test light and we're going to pop into here. We're going to turn the power off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. So that's operating correctly. No backfeeds. I'm happy with that. I haven't powered up the actual stepper yet because I was doing setup. I didn't want to load up the ECU and load up that ignition input. At this point, I turn the power off and we watch it move. Are you watching very carefully at this reset? See how it goes all the way out? It's actually going the incorrect way. Let's look at that again. In the Link software, it does give us the ability to reverse the polarity. I've just done that. I've stored it in. And let's give it a reset now. That's better. That's a much better result. Should open all the way up and then close. I've just returned the wiring back to where it should be. And I will put it back to the correct direction as per my diagrams. So my diagrams allow it to run in normal position. I just popped 2 of the windings around, and it often gives quite inconsistent results. I would have liked to spend a lot more time just showing the problems that these can give, but the main purpose was to show the wiring of the ECU hold function and how it holds the power on after you turn the key off. So that is working like it should. I'm pretty happy about that. With the ECU hold all set up, the stepper can be set up just like any other idle speed. Allow it to run through its temperature cycles and set the stepper where it gives the desired idle speed. And then you can flick it on to closed loop and let it do its own thing, and just double check that everything is bang on right. They're a great unit, set up right, they work really, really well. And you can adjust how long the ECU hold power stays on. This one's on for 5. The stepper is well set within that 5 seconds. So we could reduce that down a little bit. It's a really simple process. If you wire it correctly, it works well, does what it should. That's pretty much all we need to know. This is for the Storm upwards. The Thunder's got an internal ECU hold function. So that's a little bit different. So if you're doing a Thunder, look at the wiring for that. The setup is pretty well the same though. And let's hear it run, shall we? Woohoo! Rum rum! Hope that's been helpful. We'll talk to you again soon. Catch you later.